Welcome to Healing Together. I'm Nicholas Boileau. I spoke with Lynn Ann Patterson on the day of the winter solstice in 2020, which seemed to give our conversation a special kind of energy. Lynn is an expert in nutrition, yoga, Reiki, and other energy healing modalities. She's a holistic coach and is trained as a professional chef and taught numerous people and organizations about better eating and lifestyle modification. Lynn passionately educates men and women to improve their health by expanding self awareness, self knowledge, and self care through her two businesses, her yoga and wellness business and health coaching, which she calls Younger as You Age. I'd call our conversation a refreshing look at dealing with chronic pain, especially back pain. We talk about knowing when to rest and knowing when to push yourself, chronic versus acute pain, and even how to think about pain and frame it in your own mind. Lynn explains the concept of energy bodies, which range from physical to spiritual. And we finish our conversation with practical exercises and tips for de-stressing and better connecting to your body and mind. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you do as well. So I know people who will not do anything because it hurts. And part of me thinks, and I think I'm right, of course, we all do, that if they just did a little bit, it would get better and better. But they let the pain or the anticipation of pain stop them. And then whatever the condition is gets more chronic and more inflamed. And, they gather more weight because they're not active. How
Yes.
do you know when you work with your clients who have chronic back pain? How do you know that boundary between needing to allow the body to recover and listening to its signals, whereas or versus pushing yourself a little bit to get the energy flowing again in parts that have been still for too long?
Yeah. And I think it's a beautiful question. And I have incredible compassion for people who are in pain and suffering. I want that
Yeah.
to be known. It's not like one day you just decide I'm not in pain anymore and you do things that you hadn't done for a long time. This is the process, right? There
Yeah.
is a process involved in learning to be your own friend in the healing journey. So, when there's like a physical injury, we consider that acute pain, right? And so tissues have been damaged, and the sensory nerves send a message to the brain, and the brain registers, okay, we've been injured here. And it sends a message through the motory nerves back to the site of the injury. And that starts up the inflammation, which is like the internal band aid. And
Yeah.
then if it's not major and you don't require surgery, or even if you do, the physical body will eventually heal because it can, it knows how. But now, when we talk about chronic pain, that's a whole different terrain to cover. And I worked with a stint with a group of medical professionals at a couple area hospitals in a lifestyle modification program for people with heart disease. And we did have some patients, clients who were so inactive that if they, walked up a flight of stairs and felt the natural beating of their heart pumping blood to their muscles so they could walk up to the stairs, they thought they were having a heart attack. So for some people, that connection, that accurate read of what's actually going in your body has been severely disturbed. That connection's been broken. If you think of like a hose, and you want to water your garden and you crimp that hose, no water comes out the end. And there are many things that can cause that crimp, and we'll talk about them as this conversation unfolds. But so it's hard for people to know. It is. And that, I believe, needs to be relearned. And if
Yeah.
you're masking and dealing with pain, that is harder to relearn.
That makes so much sense to me. And it does make sense that if you've lived a long time masking those feelings or those sensations,
Yeah.
you've forgotten that a sensation might be actually a sign of something totally normal going on, maybe even something healthy.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Nicholas, that this sort of, you didn't use the word, but I'm identifying it as fear. You're bracing for pain that is
Yeah.
not actually happening in your system right now. It's like, I'm just going to take a pill now because I want to go to yoga, or I want to go to the gym or go for my run. And I don't want my knees to hurt, or I don't want my back to hurt. So I'm just going to take the pill to cut off that connection and dull the pain. And yet, if you didn't do that and you were exercising or moving, your body is in a constant feedback loop. Maybe you ran too far today and your body's telling you, like, 5 miles was enough. We don't want to do 10 today. Get out of your head and get
Yeah.
into your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Same in yoga. When I work with my therapeutic yoga clients, I don't want them to come in just having popped an Advil. I want them to come in with all of their senses as open as possible so we can discover together, does this movement help or does it make things worse? And then we move ahead with the things that are helping. And then I can retrain them to move in that way that's helpful rather than hurtful.
So I'm a skier, and I would take a pill at the beginning of skiing. And now that I think back upon it, I think I was really affected by these television commercials where I would see the redness of the inflamed joint going down. And I would think, well, I better do that before I go exercise. And I'm not even thinking that I'm blocking the signals to my brain. I'm thinking that physiologically, I'm somehow reducing inflammation before it happens,
Mhm.
and
And
that
that's
will benefit me. But I totally forgot that what I'm doing is masking what's happening.
right, because when you're skiing, that's all that shock of your body hitting the earth, the snow,
Yeah.
the ice, whatever's there. In New England, sometimes it's rocks and dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
That goes into the knees and then the spine of a skier. But the knees are, so many skiers have bum knees, and I grew up in a family who skied, so I know that too. And yet, if we were to feel that pain in the knee and go, okay, maybe there's something about my technique of skiing. Maybe there's some connection between my feet to my knees to my hips that's out of alignment, or my hips to my shoulders is out of alignment. Because the statistics do show for physical pain, 75% of people in physical pain, that is due to a structural misalignment, that some part of your physical structure, your skeletal and muscular system, is out of balance. Your muscles are meant to hold the bones in an alignment that is safe for the joints so that you can move and enjoy your activities. But when there's a misalignment from whatever, you're sad and so you slouch, or whatever, you just have a habit of sitting or moving, or your muscles aren't strong, so you collapse. All those things affect your body and can cause patterns of chronic pain.
And I think
And
what you're saying is that we're not tuning into that misalignment
no,
necessarily if we're just treating a momentary pain with drugs, or just not being conscious that there may be. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, sort of what is structural misalignment.
yeah, and I'll say that it's nobody's fault because we're not taught those things in school. If you're lucky, if
Yeah.
you're a yoga teacher, the one of the lineages, two of the lineages, the main ones that I studied in, both had a very refined, sophisticated focus on the structural alignment. They just knew that, but not every style does. Lots of styles just push you through the pain, push you through the pain, just keep going, and eventually you'll love it. And for some people, they do because they can push through the pain. Other people can't,
Yeah.
but still there's the pain, right? So the structural misalignment, if you think of your physical spine, is the part of your body, your physical body, that is fielding gravity all the time. So, gravity, as we know, is this weight that's pushing down on the physical body. And that weight is supposed to go through the four natural curves of your spine. It then goes into the sacrum and tracks horizontally through the pelvis into the hip sockets. And then from the hips goes down your legs and feet and grounds that into the earth. Now, if you study
You're
Qigong,
describing this. I just want to know you're saying this almost as if you were an architect, and
Well, the
that
body is.
you're distributing the weight. You have to think about how the forces are distributed within a building in order to build it correctly and for it to be resilient when there are earthquakes or winds or storms or anything like that, or weight, or when it bears weight. Let's say, you build a library on one of your floors.
Mhm. And in the body, when you're standing, we work from the ground up. We work from the feet up to shore up that pathway for gravity to do the least harm to your body, right? To
Right.
to push down on, the injured part that you're bracing against and holding, or just squishing into your organs so they don't function properly, or your breath so you're not breathing deeply. It's very interesting structural alignment. And when we exercise, most people don't understand that science is a science of biomechanics. It's how your body is physically designed by creator, right? By whomever created our bodies, because you and I didn't wake up one day and said, I'm going to create a human being. I don't know
Right.
how to do that. But some force, some intelligence did, and it did it with a very refined sensibility, a beautiful sense of architecture. That the human body is an exquisite form to hold, one's soul energy.
Why do you think the back then is such a common area of physical pain?
Also, from the structural perspective, the weight of your skull, I don't have the weight in right now in my mind. I didn't think to look that up, but say the skull weighs 10 pounds or 15 pounds, it's heavy, 20 pounds if you're a big person.
Right.
That weight is pushing down on the neck vertebrae, which are they're the smallest vertebrae in the spine. They allow the greatest mobility, so we can look up and down and front and back to the sides, so we can know that our environment is safe. And and then the middle thoracic spine, those vertebrae are larger, and they have the mobility of bending forward, bending backwards a little bit, twisting side to side. And then when you get into the lower back, which is where most people have the most back pain,
Yeah.
chronic lower back pain is sort of the largest chunk of back pain that people experience. Those vertebrae are larger and less mobile. They're the least mobile. And the last one sits into the sacrum and is not mobile at all, that L5. So that's often L4, L5, or L5S1. Those are often a big problem area. Plus, your spine is holding your nerves, right? The whole central nervous column is
Right.
wedded through the vertebrae. So if if you pinch a nerve, or if you're sitting in a way that's kind of pushing or distorting the flow of energy through the nerves, which is the sensory nerves are taking information from around you, your environment, in and up to your brain, and then your brain has to figure out what that means, and then gives an instruction back into your body. So often when we're experiencing pain, the thing that people do is they want to push it away. They want to just immediately get rid of it. They're not curious. Why am I having this pain? Why is it in my neck? Why is it in my lower back? Why could that be? Could it be anything that I'm doing? Could I in any way be causing that pain myself? And to me, that when you're willing to open up into that inquiry, you can start to figure out a lot of things and start to shift your habits, and then get out of those patterns of pain, chronic pain.
So I think you're saying the first thing we need to do is be curious about it.
Yes, be curious and willing to look. So when I think about pain, I think about pain as the body's internal GPS system, right? It is like a meter. When some part of your body is broken or out of alignment, and this is still physical. It could even be, if someone says harsh words to you, and then
Yeah.
it touches your heart, and now your
Right.
heart is broken. Or you have an argument and your mind is just fuming, and now you have mental pain, right? Because we have pain in the mind, in the emotions, and in the body, all of these.
Yeah.
That pain is simply telling us something's out of balance here. Something is not aligned with the ultimate purpose of the physical body, which is to be a conduit of spirit. I know I'm jumping ahead.
No, no, but this is fascinating.
So I think of pain well, perhaps better to say, what if we consider pain as a friend, an ally, or a messenger instead of a problem to be solved or fixed or immediately quelched? Because if you come in from that angle and welcome pain, pain is giving you a lot of information. Maybe it's like, oh, I always have that spot on the side of my back. Or I had a client, it's
Yeah.
like she couldn't turn her head very far. So we worked with the physical alignment, which then gave us access to working with her breath. And for her, as soon as she saw that she was holding her breath and that was causing her tension and that tension was causing her pain, she was just like, oh my God, the little things you gave me to remember to breathe worked like a charm. And
Yeah.
she was healed. And in, 10 weeks, she could do everything with her neck that she needed to. And I haven't seen her since. So, we start with the alignment because we experience pain on the physical level. Even if it's heartbreak, we go, oh, my heart, that's in the body. Or, oh, my head hurts. Oh, I have anguish. It's still in the body.
Yeah.
And then so we want to consider pain as an ally. So why would we want to just dumb it down so it can't give us any information?
I was listening to a Qigong teacher recently who said pain is just another form of energy. And that completely changed my relationship both to physical and psychological pain, to think of it as just energy, and it's just a different form of energy. And at the fundamental, level of what we're made of, which is, atoms and neurons and neutrons that are constantly circling, right? It's all energy. It made so much sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
May seem a little silly to go that far with it, but to think of it that way for me helped me reconsider how I looked at a moment or a bad feeling, whether it's physical or intellectual or emotional. One of the things I think about a lot is that most of us, I don't think we evolved to sit as much as we do, but most of us are sitting most of the day. And I certainly notice that when I'm more physical, when I get exercise, or even when I stand, I bought a standing desk. It doesn't happen in a moment, but at the end of the day, I feel like I'm feeling 1,000 times better. And sometimes I wonder why, and sometimes I have the presence of mind to say, well, I didn't sit much today. I
Mm-hmm.
notice that when I'm sitting, I curl up, especially if I'm having a difficult conversation. I'll cross my legs and the openness goes away and becomes kind of restricted and tight. Can you speak a little to that and maybe speak to how I mean, a lot of people don't have the choice to stand up,
Right.
and don't have a standing desk or their work won't provide one.
Yeah.
How do we manage that situation where we're sitting so many hours a day?
Mm-hmm. So before I answer that question, I just briefly want to speak to your comment on energy. And it made me think of Deepak Chopra's beautiful quote that human beings are made of energy and awareness.
Mm,
So we don't want to take the painkillers, right? Because that blocks off the feeling of the energy and it blocks off our awareness of that energy. So the way that we can use energy, whether it's flowing or stuck to our advantage, is to become more aware of it, to understand it. So we need those two to balance energy and awareness of the fact that we are energy. The way the human energy system is set up. Well, let's go down that path in a minute. So to answer your question about sitting
well,
structurally,
before we do that, sorry to interrupt, but I'm curious if we never want to take painkillers, because there are moments where, I remember passing a kidney stone and being
oh
in
yeah,
agony
yeah.
on the floor of my house, finally saying to my wife, call the ambulance because I couldn't take it anymore after days. And when they gave me whatever it is they gave me, I felt like kissing the poor ambulance worker who had been dealing with my moaning 2 minutes earlier. And I thought, okay, well, there's an invention worth being thankful for, whatever it is they put in my
Absolutely.
veins.
Absolutely. And that again is an acute circumstance,
Yeah.
passing
Yeah.
a kidney stone or whatever, is like intense, or a gallstone, like that's intense. So there absolutely are moments, if you're going to have surgery, they're going to give you full anesthesia or a local anesthesia to numb the pain, because otherwise they won't be able to do their work, right?
Right.
Because you'll be like
Right.
flailing the whole
Right.
time.
Right.
So I'm saying, in acute circumstances, do what you need to do. Absolutely. But there are often people who like had back surgery and they still have pain. Maybe they have more pain than they had before they had the back surgery. So that's the investigation of, this conversation about chronic pain, because it is a different animal than acute pain. And, there are days where you just think like, if the pain is like kill me now level of pain, then you
Yeah.
probably want, or kill somebody else level of
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you probably
Absolutely.
want to take something to calm yourself down a little bit. And
Right.
certainly when the pain is the most extreme, that's in a way the hardest. Sometimes it's the hardest, but sometimes a shift with some of the techniques I use can be very immediate and profound. So it just depends. Pain is such an individual, um, it's so personalized and subjective
Yeah.
that, if we
Absolutely.
could measure the amount of pressure pushing on my hand and your hand, it could be the same amount of pressure, but I might be going, oh, and you might be going, I don't feel anything.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So it is highly subjective, and we have to honor that. Everybody's journey is different. And some people don't have the motivation or the initiative or the desire to actually take more responsibility for their own health and learn better self-care techniques and learn to align their body more holistically or structurally, optimal structural alignment is the term we use. So some people are probably better served in that way.
Yeah.
Natural
Yep.
healing is not for everybody, and there is a reason why we have painkillers, but a lot of people just pop them all the time, and then that can create other problems and side effects. That's always
r-
a problem with pharmaceuticals. There are always side effects. There's no bad side effect to good alignment. There's only positive side benefits,
That's true. I've
right?
never thought of it in that way either. There are no real negative side effects to taking better care of yourself.
Absolutely.
So sorry to take us down that rabbit
No,
hole,
no,
but
this is all great, and this is how we roll. So
yeah.
so getting back to sitting when, because that's like the new disease, sitter's disease. That's a thing now, because so many people sit all day on their laptops.
Yep.
And sitting and being immobile is one of the worst things for a human body. Our lymph system is designed, it only flows through movement. Your blood has a muscle, your heart, which pumps the blood. So even if you're sitting, your blood is flowing, albeit not so readily, but your lymph can get stagnant, and then the lymph isn't doing its job to clear out pathogens and bacteria and viruses and stuff. So it's not doing a good job, and then you can get sick from something else. Uh, but the way our pelvises are designed is actually, and I found this fascinating when I first heard this, is actually designed more the shape of a quadruped, a four-legger. So the pelvis would be like, this way with the legs coming down, and then walking would be on the horizon. But in our bodies, we're upright. And so the spine is even more important, because now gravity has to track through the hips and down into the earth to keep it from getting caught somewhere in the spine or in the sacrum or in the hips.
Right.
So
And in a
that's,
quadruped, the spine would be supported by four
yes,
legs that are each making contact with the ground.
yes,
So sort of the front half of the weight gets distributed to the front legs,
very
whereas
astute.
for us, the whole weight is coming down and distributed down into our two legs and then our feet and into the ground.
So we could say that our increased mobility being two-leggers, we've lost a little stability that the four-leggers have.
Right. Which anyone who's ever had a dog and tried to run after it knows.
You're not going to catch it
Right.
unless he decides to lay down and have a nap.
Right. Exactly.
So I think we've talked a lot about the physical spine. Do you have
Yeah.
more questions on that? Can we talk about the energetic and spiritual spines
Yeah,
too?
absolutely. Because I think that's a big part of what you're talking about when you talk about alignment.
So I can teach someone how to physically align their body so that the four curves of the spine are in the most optimal position for that person, because everybody's curves, some are very shallow, some people have very deep curves. We all have a bone structure that's really not going to change in our life. We can build more muscle mass and we can use that strength to support the joints, which is a good thing. Because if you think of the spine, it's made up of a series of bones, and the space in between each vertebrae is another joint. So your
That's right.
spine just has, forgetting now, are we 24 vertebrae in the spine? I should know that like that.
I should know that too.
Seven in the neck, 12 in the thoracic, 5 in the lumbar, and the sacrum is one bone fused, four or five fused together. So add that up, you mathematicians. I'm not going to do it now. Um, if we think of the body in terms of energy flow, science,
Yeah.
quantum physics is
Yeah.
like we're more space than material. When you keep looking under a microscope into the atom and into the smaller and smaller micro neutrinos, I forget the atom, I forget that scientific part of it. But you keep looking deeper and deeper, and then you're like, there's nothing there. So what we feel as dense physical matter is actually space. It's energy and awareness. And the yoga traditions, even the Kabbalah talks about this, like the spiritual anatomy, the energetic anatomy is the bridge between you and your environment. So when you hear a loud truck go by and you kind of step back because that sound wave has
Yeah.
just come through your senses and made you
Yeah.
react,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like that part of that comes in through what we call the chakras. And if we understand the physical body purely as energy, light, there is this singular column of energy onto which the chakras are affixed. And I imagine the chakras as both on the horizontal plane and on the vertical plane. And my understanding, and this has just come through meditation and divination, this is what's come to me this year during the COVID, because I've had a lot of time to myself. And what I understand is the chakra part that's facing outward, front and back of this column of light, is bringing energy information in from your environment. But the chakras also on their horizontal plane are siphoning energy between heaven and earth, between spirit
Right.
and matter, God and you. So the purpose of the chakras is also to take in information like our five senses do, but they're putting it into the energy body. And we know, like from acupuncture, we have the meridians. In yoga, we call it the central channel, the sushumna, and then the two nadis.
Yep.
That is the symbol, the medical symbol, right? You have the wings and the circle, that's your third eye. You have the column, and then you have the two snakes. That's the
Yep. Yep.
two nadi and the two nadis spinning around that energy column. So that wisdom was once known, but it's not practiced in modern medicine anymore.
Well,
So
so
our
it's fascinating because also at the atomic level and at the DNA level, there's that shape of a helix is happening all
yes,
the time, and the spinning, the round and
all
round.
connected.
And
They're all
I just want to note, you mentioned that we're more space than matter. I read recently that if you took all of humanity and took out the space, we would all fit into the space of a sugar cube.
Oh, I love that. I've heard that too. Yes,
Yeah,
thank you for
it's
bringing
just
that
an
back up.
extraordinary thing.
It's mind-blowing. We're
Yeah,
we're really not even here.
yeah,
We're just aware that there's energy and exchange and
yeah.
conversation.
I hear
It's
things
so
like that, and I'm like, how am I holding together?
yes. So why would we need some kind of subtle energy system to inform the physical body? If the physical body is only material, which we just proved is not, modern science has proved that we're more space than matter. Metaphysical teachings from eons ago have taught us that too.
Yep.
So we can't really consider that we're only physical beings anymore. There's way too much knowledge and information out there that we're so much more, that we're energy and awareness. So then we have to consider that our physical pain is not only physical, that any physical pain we're experiencing could have an energetic or a more subtle component. So there could be something in your energy field, that beautiful image Da Vinci created, Da Vinci's man
Right.
or
Yeah.
woman. I've
Yeah.
seen images where someone have put feminine genitalia there. That circle, an arm's length around you, is your personal electromagnetic energy field. That's subtle energy. They can measure that with instruments. And sometimes, like, stuff gets stuck in your field, like a piece of wood, a splinter gets stuck in your skin. Stuff can get stuck in our energy field, and then it's blocking the flow of information and energy and awareness through our chakras into the central channel. Now I got to just explain the central channel now in case someone listening has never heard of that. So in front of your spine, the energetic spine is this column of light. And it actually doesn't stop at your head and perineum. It keeps going. That's like your soul's light. And that light goes through the entire universe into infinity. You can think of it like your body is a little bead on this strand of consciousness that has no beginning and has no end. That's what the yogis say. That's what the medical, physical, and spiritual teachers say. Even quantum physics is coming back in agreement.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say for anyone who thinks that this is getting a bit woo-woo, which I definitely have a little part of me that, is so grounded in my education and in the physical sciences and the things I can see and touch, but not necessarily perceive. Western science is definitely validating some of these things and showing that you call it the light energy or the resonance or the energy that is beyond what we can touch in a sort of hard way, that these are actually there. And I think also anecdotally we all know what it's like when someone walks into a room with a storm cloud over them, and we feel it right away, even though there may be no if someone took a flat picture and handed it to you of that moment, you might not notice, you might not be able to discern that someone has a storm cloud over them. But if you're in that room, you can feel it.
That's energy, right?
That is energy.
And
Yes.
their energy field is communicating with your energy field. That's what's happening. If you
Yeah.
see someone and then you're like, ooh, like that person's sexy, like I'm attracted to them. It's like,
Right, right. Or they're
right?
glowing.
Talk about each chakra has its own sort of archetype, its own characteristics. So it's like, when you're making love with another person, it's like your root chakra and their root chakra. Well, if
Yeah.
all the chakras line up, woo, it's a great time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to me, it's so gratifying that more, you can call them more mystical or traditional sciences are actually merging now with some of the more modern Western based physical sciences.
Yeah, I'd like to just say that I actually think it's the opposite way around, because modern science
Sure.
for the last 100 years has elbowed everybody out of the spectrum except their own very narrow slice of understanding. And since
Yeah.
that's the furthest thing from the truth, that we're not only physical beings, that's I have to say it, a bit of a lie. It's a misperception.
Yeah.
um, we believed it for a long time, but if you have a heart experience, likewise, when someone comes into a room with big heart energy, you're just like,
Yeah.
like, oh, the saints, they draw a picture of them with the golden light around their head, the halo. That's real. That's not just in a picture. That's like, you can feel that. You can feel that in your own body when you're happy and whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have
Right?
we have expressions like, oh, that person walked in and lit up the whole room. So
Exactly.
people
So
do that.
these are what you're calling the anecdotal proof. Everybody understands this. You can feel what someone's emotion is. You can feel their mental state because we already have that capacity inside us. That's how we're made. So let me just define the five bodies. I know we were going to talk about that too. So
Yes.
we've talked a ton about the physical body. we have what I call the breath body, right? You breathe, and as you inhale, you feel your physical body expand. And as you exhale, you feel it contract. In meditation, we use the breath as a doorway to connect with that unseen world, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
something, nothing, a god or goddess, spirit, the emptiness, whatever
The
tradition you're
universe.
in has a
Yeah.
name for that thing.
Yeah.
And when you have like a good meditation, you're like, I connected to that thing, right? And then you just felt washed with love and light and purity of being. So that's like this, what the spiritual spine is bringing in. And to me, that comes first. The physical is the last. So we have the physical body, we have the breath body, which is like a bridge to all the other bodies. We have the emotional body. You know what you're feeling if you look and pay attention. We have a mental body. We're thinking. Our culture is fixated on the mental body. And then we have what I call like the intuitive or wisdom body. And beyond that, the one that's holding everything is the bliss body. It's the higher self, it's the soul, it's the Godhead, the God light. And so to me, the physical spine, when we understand it, is best served, we're best served when we align the physical spine so that the energetic spine is open, the chakras are open and giving and receiving, exchanging information, not only to one another, but up and down through the central channel to source. And you can do meditations. I have a lot of them on my YouTube channel, Sacred Being. It's not a big thing, but it's there, just starting, where we're like bringing down the light, or practices like Qigong or yoga can like bring down the light, the spiritual light, because we are spirit in this very condensed physical form. And yet for so many years, we've defined ourselves by the smallest equation, the physical form, instead of the most expansive, which is one soul we all share. So getting back to pain, I'm going to ramble on a little more, and then I know you'll ask another question. But getting back to pain is, especially chronic pain, I do believe it, once the physical body is healed, there is some other disconnection or some other block in one of the other bodies, one of the other layers that is blocking the holy light, is blocking your experience of that holy light. It's dimming it down, right? So we want to uncover what is the source of that pain. Let's just not put a band-aid on the symptoms of pain. Let's investigate, what is the source? Is it coming from the emotions? Is it coming from the mind? Is it coming because we're simply disconnected from our own intuition and wisdom? Is it because we have no relationship to spirit? Like that's, I think the statistics of people who feel spiritually disconnected are, like 60% of the population. Like that's an epidemic.
Yeah.
That's huge. So part of my work is helping people reconnect on these levels and work out where the blocks are in the psychological, emotional, and physical levels, so that that energy can run first as like the spirit energy coalesces into light, coalesces into sound, coalesces into a thought. That's why our head is at the top of the body. Coalesces right into maybe from a thought, a word, a speech, coalesces down into the body where we are acting on this three-dimensional earth plane in the physical. So it's, we start from spirit, the most expanded state, and we come into the most contracted. And then our work in healing and as humans is to simply remember of where we come from, what we're made of. And that's that connection of the, having your physical spine in good shape will allow you to get out of pain and will help you connect more directly with spirit. We're at a time now where we don't really need the priests and the rabbis, not to diminish their role, but we can connect. As humans, we're designed to connect to spirit directly. And when these different connections are free and flowing, we're not going to be in pain. We're going to be in bliss. And that's our natural state. And that's what I help point people towards.
Well, that's so interesting. And it's so interesting to me that your business or one of your businesses is yoga, which I tend to think of as a physical thing. But then to hear you speak that way, and as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that we live on several levels, right? I'm interpreting it as levels.
Yes.
So there's a level in which I spend most of my time, which is the very physical level, the computer, and I don't want to knock anything about science or modern technology. This is miraculous. Like right now, we're in a pandemic, and you and I are having this conversation through technology that I can barely begin to understand. It's a miracle. So thank goodness for all the time and effort and rigor and scientific study and inventiveness that have gone into giving us all the comforts and capabilities we have. But when I think of these levels, if I'm existing on this level and I'm feeling empty or in pain, and you're right, my pain is often happening on several levels. I will say my back hurts, but I that's because I'm protecting the fact that I'm also pissed off or grumpy,
Hmm.
or feeling overwhelmed by all I need to do, or blaming someone for something they did. That's happening at other levels, but I'm boiling it down into this one level where I'm focusing all my energy. And then I go on Facebook and I see the advertisement for the new car or the thing I was looking at last week that popped up again. And I think that'll make me happy.
Hmm.
And I'm perpetuating this existence that is unconscious of all the other things I could be taking care of that in turn go back to this physical level and will make me feel better.
Hmm. We do have this notion in the natural healing community that the physical pain is the last one to show itself.
I love
It's
that
the
idea.
last on a line of disconnects. So if there's a disconnect on the level of your heart and emotions, or there's an argument between what your head says you should do and what your heart wants to do, or there's some other disconnect, you've had an argument, or you're feeling sad or afraid of something, and then you shut down and you stop breathing. Like, there's so many ways that we can disconnect, and yet they're all ways that we're already wired as a human being. So it's this idea of like using pain as your ally is to go in and, like you're saying, well, okay, my back hurts. Why is that? Can I adjust my posture? Can I notice my feelings? Can I notice my thoughts? Because self-talk, both Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. John Sarno did a lot of research on, how the mind affects the body, like research, hard science. Your thoughts affect your body
Absolutely.
positively, negatively. We know that as humans, like, oh, I suck, or oh, I'm wonderful. We can see that effect, but we don't really use it then as a tool for our own health and healing. And for many people, the mind and the emotions are just a big entanglement of stuff that's, until that's unraveled, it's hard to know which one's triggering which. And so to be able to look at and get at the source of what triggers you, what triggers the reaction, because chronic pain is like a constant reaction over and over and over again of some pattern that you have yet uncovered and sorted out. And when you do, often you're like, oh, like, I'm not angry. My back doesn't hurt. For me, I had sciatica for a decade. First, I healed it physically. It took me 2 years in my yoga practice doing the poses with a very particular way of using the muscles to align the legs so there wasn't pressure on the sciatic nerve. And then after that, it would come back every now and then. And it took a while, but I started to see, oh, when I get pissed, that's triggered. And then I started to be able to watch, okay, well, when you get pissed, you have to work on that level of your emotions. Or maybe it's a thought. Are you pissing yourself off? Are you using self negative talk? And that's the trigger? Or is someone or something out there pissing you off and that's triggering this sciatic response? So I know this terrain very well. I've worked through it myself on many levels.
And you're also saying, are you being triggered possibly because you're in a position to be triggered? because something else might not have been taken care of, because you didn't do the practices that took care of yourself spiritually and emotionally, that put you in a place where whatever it is that triggered you may just wash off your back, like water off a duck's back.
Yeah, or, simply you just didn't know. I mean, we're not educated as children to have this level of self-care. To me, this
Yeah,
is a very
yeah,
refined level of self-care. We got like wash your face, brush your teeth, and change your underwear, eat 3 meals a day, drink 8 glasses of water, and that's it. End of self-care. To me, that's like barely beginning self-care because
yeah,
now we understand the human body. Okay, it's complex. You have more than just the physical to manage, but people already are trying to manage their mind and their emotions. That's embedded in who we are as human beings. And if you're lucky to have some path that connects you to some kind of spiritual practice, whatever it is, whatever lights up your heart and gives you access to more love, doesn't have to be like spiritual practice. It can be dance or jogging or gardening, whatever you love, music. It's humans are multiverse. So whatever turns you on, whatever turns the light on, that can also be a source of incredible healing.
well, let's talk about that a moment, because so there's so many places we could go, and I really expected this conversation to mostly focus on what I think of as the physical back and things we could do, but maybe as we're wind down, we could take a moment for you to, if you have time, to teach just a couple of simple things we could leave a listener with that they could incorporate into their life to feel better.
Absolutely. I would love to give two physical little things, and especially that someone can do when they're sitting. And then we'll do some, whatever one pops in, some kind of meditative or body mind exercise.
That sounds great.
So for you, Nicholas, and for anyone who's listening, I invite you to just move forward to the very edge of your chair seat. So you're not using the back of your chair to slouch against. And simply we're going to experiment just for a minute. So go ahead and tip your pelvis backwards so your back rounds, right? And your spine rounds forward. This is like a collapsed. And just for a minute, notice how that feels in your breath. Can you breathe? How
Less
that
well.
feels in your like organs, your internal organs. Do they feel compressed? And
Yes.
do those two things in turn affect your mind or emotions at all? Do you feel somehow less well or less happy? Is there some way in which your light is diminished because you're slouching?
I didn't know whether to respond or not, but
I was just giving you time to, I figured you were really in there trying
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
uh,
No,
see if you
definitely.
noticed a difference, right? When
Definitely.
we
Yeah. It feels cramped. It
collapse.
is hard to breathe. Absolutely.
Yeah. Could you feel anything on the mental or emotional level?
I
Maybe,
started
maybe
to,
not.
yeah, I started to feel more self-conscious. I started to feel just questioning of, what am I doing? Is this right?
Right. Yeah. So that feeling of doubt in your mind, right, is a way that the mind is negatively influencing your human system.
Yeah.
So now let's go the other way. We'll go really far forward on your sit bones and, almost like you're doing a back arch. You could even pull your elbows back. Now it's like I'm sitting up straight and tall, like a military stance. And now feel how that feels on your back, because now it's like you're contracting your back muscles. Does that have a different feeling, this sitting sort of really arched forward?
Well, it's contracting the back, but there's an openness here.
Yeah.
And to me, it feels powerful.
Yes. There's a lot of kind of
It
ego
feels,
involved.
it feels strong. Yeah.
Yes. It's like the I am an individual, right? Me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
almost military stance, stand up straight. So now let's rock back a little bit so you start to feel your spine shorten. And then as you breathe in, just rock forward, feeling the whole length of your spine from the base to the crown until you just come up to your height, the apex, without then kind of arcing and jutting your chin forward. So there's a place on your sitting bones. That's what we're supposed to sit on. You don't want to sit on the flat sacrum. When you slouch back, you're sitting in the sacrum and flattening your lower back and risk herniating a disc or pinching a nerve or something. So there is a place, we call it the sweet spot, right in the middle of the sit bones. When you're right in the middle, you just feel your spine just rises up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the Buddha, the middle way, the middle path. Don't be extreme. Just get yourself into the middle. And that point is where gravity will track without getting stuck somewhere. That's not to say you don't have a misalignment and might need adjustment or something, which can be useful. But it's we start to learn to hone into that optimal position ourselves. That's where we get the power, because you can go to a chiropractor this week and go home and slouch again, and then you have to go back and get another adjustment next week. So how can we self-adjust with mindful awareness, be more conscious of like there is a place where the body is in its balanced point.
I notice I can belly breathe much easier
Yeah.
this way, which I strive to do sometimes, is just let breath sink into my belly. I think what you're saying is maybe a beginning stage for this is just to remember to sit on the edge of your chair,
Well,
which
but
for
to
me
get
would be
in the
very
middle,
helpful.
to sit on the edge of the chair and also to be in the middle of your sit bones,
In your
because you
middle.
can sit on
Yeah.
the edge of your chair and collapse
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
arc.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so once you're in that middle place, what if you just take your hands either on your rib cage or down on your hips? Let's do it on the hips. Just take your hands on the top of your hips. And as you press down on your hands, and this is great for anyone with lower back, inhale and just stretch up. So you feel the rib cage lifting up, the sternum lifting up, the collarbones lift up. And that's just going to allow you to breathe more deeply, and that actually decompresses the spine. And now if you were to keep that length in your spine and take your hands off, well, now you have to use your abdominal muscles to maintain that alignment without collapsing again. So simply to get the pelvis in the right position, create a little extension in the spine, and then you're actually using a little muscle tone to hold the alignment. Your lower back is going to feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, this is great.
And that's something anyone can do. I mean, I have tons of things that people can do, but to me, that's the most simple when you're sitting. You could even do it like just that, lengthening up
You just
into your
feel your
head.
head. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a moment, where the spine just is like, oh, that feels lovely. And then when we add the rib cage, well, that takes the weight of the torso off the lower back and gives a little more space between the discs.
Right. And you're saying also, in addition, while I'm sitting, I'm going to strengthen those abdominal muscles.
In a very gentle way. And also
Yeah.
now you're also aligning the energy pathways, right? That central
Yeah.
column, instead of being all crooked, is just like a straw, if you will. And the light can come down from heaven and up from the earth. This is like creating heaven on earth. Like
Right.
that's what we're
Nicely
trying to do as
said.
humans. Let's be nice to one another. Let's share everything. Let's stop being greedy and having to have everything ourselves.
Yeah.
So this is we're in a process of evolution, and I just feel like this is to understand the design of the human body is part of our evolution. If we don't understand it, how can we use its strengths and gifts to make our lives happier, better, more whole, more loving, more happy, more joyous? Right?
Yeah.
When you
Totally
align,
agree.
the bliss body opens up, and you're like, well, when you're in the bliss body, there is no pain. There's nothing but love, light, and bliss. Everything else just goes away. And you're like, oh, love it.
Yeah. And I think other people feel it too when you're around them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why people on a spiritual path want to sit in the presence of a teacher, because they're emanating that energy all the time. I think of like Amachi, the hugging saint. Just to go and be hugged by someone who is holding pure love and pure light for humanity is extraordinary.
Yeah, of course.
That's We have to, unfortunately, people are hugging from a distance now. And I hope very soon we stop doing that behavior, because it is not making us feel any better as human beings.
Yeah.
We need to be with one another. We need our hearts to be flowing to one another as well as to source, and then to help heal the whole planet.
Yeah. Well, I think we're on that path. And in that end, to survive these months of hugging at a distance, you said you might show us a mind body exercise.
Let's do this. This is one of my just favorite ones to this is I teach this in my classes now a lot. So adjust your posture so that you're in the middle of your sit bones. You're not arching or rounding the lower back. And then take a few deep breaths all the way up to the top of your lungs. You can let the shoulder girdle rise up as you inhale, and gently draw the shoulders back, just so you have a little connection between the upper back muscles. And now you're going to lean your ears and shoulders back over your hips. So now you feel your abdominals, and you're not squeezing them. It's just a sensation that they're gently toning to support your spine. Abdominals for the lower back, and the upper back muscles for the thoracic. And as you move the head back, that takes care of your neck. Now go ahead and close your eyes and just feel your breath. There's only one breath. There's only one body of air that we all breathe. So let's not be afraid to breathe together. And as you feel your ribs expand and contract, maybe your belly expand and contract as you breathe in and out, just soften and open yourself up. Imagine your body is like a tube or a straw. And from the sun, whether it's sunny or cloudy where you are, the energy of the sun, those neutrinos, are just streaming down from the sun, down through the atmosphere of the earth and down into your body, coming into the top of your head, and just streaming down through all the chakras, whether you believe in them or not, or you can just stream the light down through your physical body, from the top of the head all the way to the base. And just hold that light for a moment. And every time you breathe in, imagine your body is filling with light. I like to use gold or white light, but you can use any color or rainbow of colors. Sensing, seeing, imagining, feeling your body filling with light, sacred light, pure energy. And as your body fills with light, notice how that light can grow bigger than your physical body. It can expand into the space around you. So you can imagine this light energy coming out from within in all directions, from your legs, from your spine, definitely from your heart and head. And keep expanding that golden light energy to envelop the whole planet, circling all the way around the planet, coming back to you, coming back into your body from the base of the spine and all the way rising up to the top and beyond. And in this way, we start to connect to the soul body, right? The bliss body that has no end. And we hold each other inside that light. Every person, no matter their beliefs or situation, every animal, every creature, every plant, all the elements of the earth, We just bathe ourselves and one another in this golden light. And we simply ask that our pain and suffering dissolve as our hearts open. Opening our hearts to ourselves, one another, and to spirit in whatever form you imagine it. And again, you can become aware of your breath and your body and allowing your light to remain shining outward. You can come back into this present moment. And when the moment feels right for you, take a deeper breath in and out, and then open your eyes.
What a way to end.
I
Thank
think
you.
my cells have little happy faces in them now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for guiding me and anyone else who's listening or watching through this.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. There are many things I could have shared, but for this age and because of this day of the winter solstice and today the stepping into the age of Aquarius, we could talk about that another time. It's just such a blessed day. So I wanted to offer the highest light to everyone and to you, Nicholas. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Lynn. Let's do this again.
Absolutely. We have so many ways we can spin this conversation, and I look forward to them all.